Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wizard. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Hello, Travis Taute. What is the first thing audiences should expect when they watch your movie Indemnity?
One of the first things that I think that they should expect is an entertaining ride. We set out to make a propulsive action genre film, that happens to have a really important social message embedded in it. And I think that they should just be ready to be entertained. That was the goal when making the film, is that we just wanted to make something that is fun, that's exciting, that's thrilling, and that people can walk away with, hopefully having resonated with the character's journey emotionally.
Definitely, the universality of action movies is definitely here in this movie. But tell me about the specific social message you wanted to get across.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I think in the development of the film, I always set out to make an action film because it's the kind of films I really loved growing up and really enjoyed watching, especially this sort of classic like late 90s, early noughties kind of film. And so by design, I tried to set out to do something similar in the way that it was an action film that was a man on the run story, but really it was grounded in an emotional arc that centered around trauma. And I found, in exploring, this character or the way that it was originally sort of, the idea was born out of, all these stories I used to read about, guys that were coming home from the war and how they were struggling to adapt to life based on this, post-traumatic stress disorder and what that is and what that means. And then, on a personal level and my experience here in South Africa, in the way that there's this stigma attached to mental health. And especially, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting, seeing that explored in an environment that is incredibly masculine, i.e., a firefighter, and so really, it was digging into that and really trying to, speak about how. And specifically, mostly men of color, how there's this stigma attached to mental health and how there's this unwillingness to deal with it, and what the consequences of that could be if left untreated. So that was really sort of the big takeaway for me, was really like speaking about trauma, and how we deal with it and how there are ways to overcome it if only we would be open enough to have an open conversation about it.
And it's all like that, but like in the form of like a Born Identity kind of movie.
So it was like, okay, how do we take like some cool stuff, make an entertaining film, and then just layer that in a way that hopefully is, subtextual and not too on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
You
really wanted to slip in. You don't want it to stand out.
Yeah, it's one of where you're coming along for the ride and you're leaving with an extra bit of emotional resonance in a story about redemption and a concept about trauma, doing that in a way that is mostly entertaining, that people wouldn't be like to feel like it's too preachy, which could often be the case when you're dealing with a topic like this.
So I've seen a couple of movies from South Africa before, but I've never seen anything quite like this. How long have action movies been a thing in South Africa?
Oh, a long time.
Really?
I think as a country, we really enjoy action films. Oftentimes I'd switch on my Netflix and I'd see what's trending, like what's number one in South Africa, and it would often be like the latest action offering. And I think as a nation, we've always, really enjoyed genre entertainment, from action to sci-fi to fantasy. But in saying that, it hasn't necessarily always been something we've been able to produce, and that's purely for financial reasons. The way our film industry works here, there's a very particular kind of film, or there's a number that a film needs to be produced for, budget-wise, that makes sense for investors to then see a return on their investment. And so, obviously, action is expensive to produce. It is something that people are quite wary about, but in saying that, we have so many international productions coming to shoot here in South Africa because of our tax rebates, but because of our the topography, which is often used in films but set somewhere else. But a lot of our crew are extremely capable technically. We have stunt guys that have worked on Mad Max and Tomb Raider and these big action films, but we've never really been afforded the opportunity as African filmmakers to tell a story like this with this kind of scale. And so we really set out with that ambition from the get-go, was to like, we wanted to change the game. We wanted to kind of show people and change the perception or the expectation on the kind of film that can be coming out of South Africa.
All right. And how long did it take to shoot the movie? And how difficult was the production?
Interesting in that we shot the film in total over the course of 5 weeks, just shy of 5 weeks. So that's about 30, I think it was 34 days in total. But we only started shooting. Our first day of principal photography was in March 2020. And literally we got 3 weeks into production when COVID hit, and we had it shut down kind of like midway through production, which was very depressing, not gonna lie. But you know, the whole world was going through it, so it was just something that we had to deal with. But we were fortunate enough, as we came out of lockdown, I think it was June last year, we had an opportunity to go back, you know, as restrictions were being lifted, to really go back and finish the film. And then we spent another, just over 2 weeks. And then, that was when it was completed in June. So we had a first window in March and the second window in June. That totaled about 5 weeks. As for how challenging it was, look, every single film is challenging to make. But I think what was so exciting about this was that, you know, for many of us as and me as a filmmaker, having grown up loving action films, getting to do it, you know, for the first time yourself, it was this amazing learning curve, and there was so much to take away from just the way in which filming action sequences work. And I was really blessed in the team that I was surrounded by, amazing stunt choreographers and technical teams. And I had the lead character, the lead actor, Jared. He would actually train for 3 months just in preparation for the film, and did every single stunt in the film himself, including the stunt where he was hanging out of a 21st story window, which he actually did without green screen, without anything. We hung him outside the window.
Wow.
Which he was so game for, you know. And I think we were just like, okay, cool. Well, if we're going to do this, can we do it properly? And so a lot of the stunts are practical. You know, a lot of the fire is practical. And yeah, it was just like, well, how can we do this? Let's do it. Let's go for it. And yeah, it was really a way to test what could be done. And hopefully we succeeded.
Right. Wow, that's intense. You like the practical effects. You want the realness. Nice.
I think so. You know, I think it just makes everything so much more believable. And when I read these stories of these filmmakers and see how the different ways in doing it, I thought, you know, it just would be great to do something practical, you know, because it just gives it that extra kind of realism, which I was really trying to ground the film in. That even though we have these crazy stunts and these fight sequences, I wanted it to be grounded and it's something real and something relatable.
Who are some of those action directors you studied?
Action directors. So I mean, Paul Greengrass was like, you know, I was obsessed with the Bourne series. When I was in film school, I think 24. You know, Jack Bauer just as a character was something I was so obsessed with. I mean, the list literally goes on. I thought Tony Scott was an incredible director in the way that he treated action, but also the way that he balanced emotion, you know, and that for me was a very important thing. In that you have so many, like these days, there's so many films and the spectacle is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But if you don't really ground it in something that, you know, someone really is with on an emotional level, then all it ends up being is just spectacle. And so for me, it was important to kind of strike that balance of character and action and plot.
That's fantastic. That's good stuff. And it's so true because there is that room to breathe in the movie. Yeah,
it's so important, you know, otherwise it just becomes exhausting after a minute or two. You're like, okay, shit, okay, what's next?
Yeah. Okay, so tell me about working with your cast. What are their names? And how do you approach talking to actors? You seem like a fun guy. Do you try to give a sense of enthusiasm for everything? Or tell me how you work.
Okay. So yeah, let me first start on the cast. Jared Taute was who played Theo Abrams. You know, incredible actor. Did a film called Ellen not too long ago. which is a South African film that he won the SAFTA award for. And really, he was surrounded by, veterans in our industry here, guys that have been doing work for years and that who I really respect. Gail Mabulani, who plays the detective, Nicole Fortain, who plays Theo's wife. Just incredibly kind, intuitive, beautiful people that just made my job really easy. But how I like to work is very collaborative. I think having lived with this project for so long, you come on board bringing that energy and all these ideas, and there's a specific way that, a vision that I have in mind in terms of how I want to accomplish this film. But I think it's important to really also listen to your cast, to listen to your crew. People always ask me, like, people that are not in the film industry, what does a director do? And I'm like, you kind of have to know everything, but also not be the best in absolutely everything. Your job is really to try to unearth the best out of everyone else. And so if you are doing, a practical stunt, i.e. you're flipping a car, there are experts that have been doing it over and over and over again. Listen to them and listen to how they might have an idea, you coming with this kind of visual, in mind in terms of what you want to achieve. And it's really about, okay, cool, well, how can we get that? Have you thought about this? Cool, I like yours more, or I like mine more, and then we'll go. But just being open to that discussion and that collaboration, I think, is so important, because pretending that you know everything doesn't necessarily result in the best result at the end of the day. And so that's really, for me, it's always a collaboration. And working with actors, I think for me, it's, we spend a lot of time in prep really discussing the core arc of the characters, the where they are emotionally at certain points in the film. And I try not to do too many rehearsals. I try to just, really get everyone to understand the crux and the conflict within each character. And then it's about exploring that on set. It's really about finding, who this person is. And we do that together. And oftentimes, there's a point where someone else will come to you and I think it should be like this, and you debate. And it's just about being open to that debate. And ultimately then, making the call as to what the best decision is going forward.
Cool. Then I think that's helpful advice for aspiring or, beginner directors.
Yeah, no, it's so important. And there's always room to learn. I think that's the most important thing. And I think I'm pretty sure that every director, no matter how experienced, is learning something new on every single job. And that's really the key, is to be open to continue learning.
Okay, so I was listening to Dave Chappelle in a podcast say that he would do a Nollywood movie. If you could have a Hollywood actor in one of your South African projects, who would it be?
There's so many. I think right now, off the top of my bat, Tom Hardy.
That'd be cool.
Just love the dude. He's so out there and intellectual and crazy, but an amazing performer, and seems like the kind of guy that you can, have this kind of character debate with, like, for days. So yeah, I think that would be interesting, but there are many.
That's awesome. So I know you've also been working on a Netflix show called Blood and Water. So can you tell me a little bit about that project?
Sure. Blood and Water. We launched the first season in May last year, which did really, really well. And in a way that we really didn't expect it to do as well as it did, but it was amazing. And it sort of just went to show sort of how hungry the rest of the world is for African content, and specifically South African content that is aspirational, that represents, we really set out with that project to show characters represented in a different way. I think people have this preconceived idea with regards to the kind of TV show or film that gets produced in South Africa. And there's this idea of who South Africans are. And I think, we really, and thanks to the platform like Netflix, which really allowed, that show to travel around the world, people got to see a different side of South Africans and Cape Townians specifically. So that was super exciting. We just wrapped production on a second season, which is launching later this year. So people have that to look forward to. But yeah, very excited about the show.
All right, well, Travis, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed the film. One more question though before I let you go. How does it feel to have the movie included in the Fantasia International Film Festival?
Oh, it is incredible. You know, Fantasia is such an awesome festival that I've been looking up to for so long. It's like the biggest genre film festival in North America, one of them. And what an incredible, you know, group of people I've got to interact with and work with as a result of being a part of the Fantasia family. No, I'm feeling incredibly blessed, and I couldn't have asked for a better place to launch the film. So I'm very stoked about that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Michael. Good chatting to you.